I'll call this regional council meeting to order. We acknowledge the traditional territories of the Dene and Cree people of Fort Nelson First Nations, whose traditional territory is located at the heart of the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality Administrative Center. We also acknowledge the many Indigenous nations with traditional territory in Northeast British Columbia and the enduring presence of the Métis community. Please be advised that tonight's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually, is being streamed and recorded. Should virtual attendees wish to address council during either the public comment period or the question and answer period, use the raise hands feature on your webinar controls. When it is your turn and are prompted, unmute your microphone, state your name, and ask your question. Once your question is ended, you'll be muted again. I have one addition tonight for council. Event Society. Request for a letter of support. Are there any councillor additions? Very well. Any CAO additions?
No, Mayor.
Very well. I'll ask for a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Andrews. Second by Councillor Souls. All those in favor? Carried. Adoption of the minutes of the Regional Council meeting of August 8th, Special Regional Council of August 8th, Special Regional Council of August 8th, 2022, Special Regional Council of August 11th, 2022, Special Regional Council of August 12th, 2022, and the Special Regional Council of September 7th, 2022. Councillor Gerwing.
Yeah, just there's a typo on the minutes for September 7th on page 27. I think it should say enter, not entire.
Very well. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes as amended? Moved by Councillor Souls. Seconded by Councillor Andrews. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any virtual attendees who wish to comment on the agenda? Thank you. Business arising. Fort Nelson. I'm sorry. Bev, did you have any comment? Okay. Business arising. Fort Nelson District Chamber of Commerce requests for fee exemption for ratification. Can I ask for a motion then that we ratify that council is in favor of waiving the grant and aid policy and approving the grant and aid of $450 plus applicable taxes to cover the cost of the Phoenix Theatre rental for the Chamber of Commerce to host an all candidates forum for the upcoming 2022 general election. Moved by Councillor Andrews. Seconded by Councillor Souls. All those in favor? Carried. And the email poll, the single source acquisition of Elgin Separation Solutions for ratification. That the raw water pond intake screens for the water quality improvement capital project be acquired through single source award from Elgin Separation Solutions for the amount of $127,900 plus applicable taxes. Moved by Councillor Souls, seconded by Councillor Andrews. All those in favor? Carried. Proclamation, Small Business Weeks. Whereas the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas small business is defined as having fewer than 50 employees and makes up 98% of all BC businesses. And whereas small businesses contribute positively to the local community by supplying jobs and generating tax revenue. And whereas a strong local business community is a key driver of our local economic prosperity. And whereas a strong local business community creates jobs and opportunities for residents of the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality and supports community growth. And whereas the Fort Nelson and District Chamber of Commerce, along with other advocacy groups, public and private organizations across the country have endorsed Canadian Small Business Week. The Business and Community Excellence Awards will be held on October 19th, 2022. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Gary Foster, do hereby proclaim the week of October 7th to 21st, 2022 as Small Business Week in the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. picture time. Anybody have a camera?
This screenshot.
Too many cameras.
Glasses.
Attracted from your hair.
Administration report number 67, zero emission vehicles request for input. Speaking to the report is Ms. Thompson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Staff have prepared a report for your consideration regarding the province's intent to make amendments to the zero emission vehicles legislation. So the Zero Emission Vehicles Act and the Zero Emission Vehicles Regulation were enacted in 2019 and 2020 respectively. And the legislation creates requirements related to light duty zero emission vehicles, which has broad implications to the automakers, retailers, and drivers throughout British Columbia. Recently, the Ministry of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation has initiated a formal review of their legislation. And it's their intentions to amend the legislation are described in the BC Zero Emission Vehicles Act and Regulation 2022 Formal Review Intentions Paper. Some of the concerns that Northern Rockies staff have identified are related to some of the objectives within those amendments, specifically related to EV travel range, inadequate infrastructure, and potential intended effects to local economy through these changes to the legislation. So based on those concerns, staff are recommending that the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality submit a formal response to the Ministry of Energy and Mines and Low Carbon Innovation concerning proposed amendments to the legislation as outlined in the formal review intentions paper.
Any comments, councillors? Councillor Andrews.
I would say it's a great letter to write. I think probably they aren't seeing the innovation they want to see, so they figure if we accelerate it, people innovate faster. That seemed to be their idea behind putting the deadlines in to start with. And I'm guessing they're not seeing what we want to see, so let's let them know that it's not going to work.
Councillor Gerwing.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I very much agree in submitting a response. I'm also wondering if we want to connect with our other communities like Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, the PRRD. Not sure about the NCLJ, but we could talk about that just to see if we're all on the same page and if they are going to be responding as well.
Very well. Any further comments? Councillor Penny.
So Councillor Gerwing, do you see it that we draft this letter and then we just forward it to those different organizations, ask for their support as well?
Yeah, that would be
That's
one
what
way of doing it. Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And then
Because I
make
wouldn't
sure
want to, sorry.
no, you go ahead. Make sure that we include our MLA and
Very well. Any further comment? All right, I'll ask for a motion for option one with the additions by Councillor Gerwing, that we engage with other municipalities and write a letter to our MLA as well. Moved by Councillor Penny. Seconded by Councillor Gerwing. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Administration report number 68, Port Nelson Motocross Club Airport License. Speaking of the report, Ms. Thompson.
Hello again, Mayor and Council. Since April of 2021, Northern Rockies staff have been fielding inquiries from the Fort Nelson Motocross Club concerning a request from them to expand their motocross track, which is currently located on lands in the vicinity of the Fort Nelson Airport. The land that the motocross track is located on was included in a sponsored Crown grant that was executed in 2014. And as part of the sponsored Crown grant, the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality paid $1 for 906 hectares. The fair market value of the land in total was valued at $776,000. In accordance with the sponsored Crown grant, a covenant exists that restricts use of the land for airport purposes only. The province has contended that uses outside of this would be considered non-compliance, and did provide some options to Northern Rockies staff regarding some options on how to rectify those non-compliances, which involve basically subdivision, payment of fair market value, or alteration of the Crown grant statement. So this report's being provided to council for information and to provide assurance that Northern Rockies staff will continue to work with the province and engage with the province to explore options, as well as seek input of what alteration of the sponsored Crown grant would look like.
Thank you. Northern Development Initiative Trust Annual Grant, Administration Report number 69.
Hi, it's me again. So this is just basically an administrative process that we undertake annually. There are 3 grants that we apply to Northern Development Initiative Trust on an annual basis, that being the Grant Writing Support Program, the Economic Development Capacity Building, and the Business Facade Improvement Program grant. Only one of those 3 actually require a resolution from council for us to be able to apply. But all 3 have been included in the report for council's consideration. So accordingly, we are seeking a resolution from council to apply for those 3 grant opportunities through NDIT.
Are there any questions? Very well, I'll call the question for option 1. Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Administration Report number 70, Mr. O'Shaughnessy. Endorsement of the Human Bear Conflict Management Plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Once APC presented the Human Bear Conflict Management Plan to Regional Council on August 12th, 2022. As you're all aware, the Human Bear Conflict Management Plan is a guiding document intended to assist the NRM in reducing human bear conflicts and contains objectives and recommendations that can be used as a foundation for the development and updating of NRM policies and procedures. Staff is here today to seek Regional Council's resolution to endorse the Human Bear Conflict Management Plan with the objective of reducing human bear conflicts and attaining the status of a bear smart community.
Thank you. Any comments? Councillor Gerwing.
Yeah, I just want to be on the record, and I guess pose the question that if we endorse the Human Bear Conflict Management Plan as a guiding document, that does not necessarily tie us to the recommendations made in the plan, does it?
No, that's correct, Councillor Gerwing. Those are ever changing and ever moving. It's a living document. So they grow as we grow, and as concerns change, they change as well.
Okay, so yeah, thank you. I would just want to make sure that somehow where that's recorded.
Any other comments, councillors? Very well, ask for a motion for option 1. Moved by Councillor Penny, seconded by Councillor Gerwing. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. O'Shaughnessy. Administration Report number 71, Business License and Regulation Bylaw Update. Ms. Glaves, Ms. Jacobs. Ms. Jacobs.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you is an administration report to provide an update on work being done to update the NRM's current business license and regulation bylaw. In January of 2022, staff received direction from Regional Council to bring back a report to review the classifications and fees associated with business licenses, as well as to evaluate the NRM's authority to determine whether businesses are properly licensed for services provided. And the report before you provides a summary of work that's taken place since January of 2022, as well as provides further information concerning the NRM's authority to verify business certification and licensing. So I'll pass it over to Jasmine to provide further information on work that has taken place to date.
Clay.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Since our last report in January of this year, Ms. Jacob and I have met with a variety of internal departments, including corporate services, regional development and planning, economic development, bylaw enforcement, fire rescue, and treasury. In March, the bylaw update was advertised through the Fort Nelson newspaper and NRM social media platforms with the intent to open up dialogue with the business community. Although feedback at that time was limited, we are taking further steps to reach out to the business community and are exploring alternative avenues to do so. In addition, we have consulted with external stakeholders such as the District Chamber of Commerce, as well as our counterparts in Fort St. John and Colwood, BC, both of which have recently updated their business licensing bylaws. In addition to the improvements identified in January of this year, staff have identified opportunity to streamline the NRM's current business license renewal process and continue to review provisions in the bylaw relevant to the licensing period, license renewals, and licensing fees. With that update, I'll pass things back over to Ms. Jacob to discuss our findings on the verification of certification and insurance.
Thank you. Ms. Jacobs.
Most recently, staff reached out for legal advice on the questions that arose back at the council meeting in January. And with this information we'd received through legal counsel, it was determined that regional council can require proof that a person who engages in a regulated trade or occupation is properly licensed to do so as a condition of obtaining a business license. And further to that, legal counsel also indicated that council has the authority to require proof of appropriate insurance when issuing licenses. That being said, it's also noted that the current business license bylaw enables the municipality to conduct inspections and verify certifications or other qualifications in the interest of protecting public safety. And I'll pass it back to Jasmine just to discuss where we see the bylaw update going forward.
Thanks, Gabrielle. Moving forward, staff continues to research, seek guidance, and gather information on the NRM's business licensing program. Additionally, we are preparing for further engagement with the business community. Staff expects that a more in-depth report outlining the business licensing program, as well as the classifications and fees, will be brought back to council for further consideration in the new year. And on that note, thank you, Mayor and Council, for your time. We'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Councillor Penny.
I don't really have any questions. I really appreciate the report and getting it prior to my departure soon. I just wanted to give a little bit of info of why this was important to me. I've been approached over the last couple of years quite a few times by different residents and even passerby's customers, just wondering exactly what steps there are in our community to ensure that different businesses are properly insured and that they're qualified to do the work that they're doing. And to be honest, I hadn't even really thought of it until they started to ask. Because of course they questioned me and my business insurances and that sort of thing, because we don't have anything displayed. I have, certifications for the jobs I do and that sort of thing, but I don't have any proof of insurances. So the more I spoke to people, they just automatically assumed that this was being done and that they were being protected. That the town was ensuring that when they're handing out a business license, that the business was, properly certified and insured in case something goes wrong, that the customers are taken care of. So that's why this was so important to me. And I won't be here for the end of it, but just to keep that in mind.
Well, we'll make a note that you were here for the beginning of it, Councillor Penny, so. Any other questions? Thank you very much for that report. Moving on, Mr. Ryerchuk. Write-off of uncollectible taxes, administration report number 72.
Mayor and Council, this administration report is to request a resolution that the Ministry of Municipal Affairs be requested to issue a minister's order for authorization to write off property taxes as identified on the attached listing totaling the amount of $77,685.25. Some background, when local government financial assets such as taxes receivable are deemed to be uncollectible, regional council may by resolution request that a minister's order be provided to write off the outstanding taxes. And the attached listing of uncollectible taxes is comprised of Crown leased property where the leasee has been unable to continue business and its assets have become property of a bankruptcy or receivership. The Crown lease property is then sold by the receiver, reverts to the Crown, or becomes a responsibility of the orphan fund. And in all instances, the outstanding taxes become uncollectible. So just wondering if, or asking whether council would like to make that resolution.
Thank you. I have a question. Where does the municipality stand in the order, like once there's a bankruptcy and the creditors go to court? What is the order that the municipality is in as far as claiming some of the assets or the value of some of the assets of the bankrupt company?
I don't know the answer to that question. I could certainly look into it and bring something back to council.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Very well, I'll ask for the motion then, please. Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? Carried. Administration report number 73, council and employee allowable travel expense policy. Ms. McIver?
Thank you. So as council will recall, in August, we discussed the former town and regional district bylaws that provided for council's stipends, remuneration, and also covered travel expenses, reimbursable expenses. And so we've gone the route of replacing that bylaw, those bylaws with policy. Council adopted their remuneration policy at the last meeting, but we did a bit more work around the travel expense policy to bring that back at this meeting. So that's what's before you tonight. So what we did was we reviewed similar policies from other public sector organizations, local governments, the province, and so on, and also took to mind some of the legacy provisions of our former bylaws. So the policy is attached there for your consideration. If you would like me to go through some of the things that kind of remain from years past versus some of the things that we've included, you will note that we're recommending an increase to the per diem, mostly just out of ease and simplicity. So in past years, there was often a review and discussion among council about the amounts for daily per diems, which is your kind of meal allowances during travel. Whereas it looks like for the most part, many communities are just adopting the CRA's annual per diem amounts and mileage amounts. So taking that approach allows us to be a little bit more, it's easier, frankly. We don't have to do a review annually or any in any other timing. So and it's it's something that's nationwide, obviously, so that is one recommendation within there. We have left in the $15 per day incidental, which is a legacy provision from our past bylaws for council's consideration for their own per diems. And then there's other things that we've honestly just omitted because it's become operational. So when we talked about, there was some discussion in the old bylaws about annual reports coming to council for training and development, and that's just become part of our annual budget process. So it doesn't need to be in a policy anymore. We did look at the private accommodation rate. So noting that all of our rates have been in effect since 2003. So the private accommodation rate is something that applies when you travel for work, but you don't stay in a hotel. So if you stay with friends or family, you're provided a basically an amount that is intended to show appreciation to the host. So when we did do our review of other communities, as you'll see in the chart there, ours was quite low in comparison. So we have recommended a slight increase to that. But other than that, I think that sums it up unless council has any questions specifically about the policy.
Any questions for Ms. McIver? Councillor Gerwin,
Oh, I
You're
can't hear
muted,
you,
Councillor
Gerwin.
I'm sorry. I have 3 points. Hopefully my voice holds out. So the private accommodation at $40, I don't agree with that. I wonder if council could have a discussion about that. And the other point is under car rental, where it says that convenient options are not reimbursable. Example, navigation systems. Honestly, I don't mind paying for myself, but this is for staff too. And like without a navigation system, we all know I'm lost. So if staff is traveling on company or for the NRM and they're anything like me, like getting a navigation system is pretty important. And yeah, that was my point, was the $40 for the stay, the private accommodation, and then the navigation system. Yeah, thank you.
so Councillor Gerwin, navigation system, can you think of any other incidentals? Because I'm thinking if we put this in a bylaw, we want to capture navigation system, and I'm just wondering if we can put something around this.
Well, from my perspective, if it's just council, I don't mind paying for it myself, but I think that a navigation system is essential. But you're going to a different city, community, whatever, like, I guess you could use your phone, but then you don't necessarily have the holder with you to attach it to the windshield. And I just think in today's world that it's really not like it's important to be able to navigate around. And then I forgot, the other thing that I would like council to consider is this $15 for incidentals. Like, it's only for council. Do we need to have that?
NCAO.
It was removed.
Sorry?
And the new policy recommends a CDO. Have it removed for the CDO.
Oh, sorry.
So Councillor Goring, as far as the motion here, you would like to amend this to include navigation.
Okay, yeah. Or just
Okay.
have a discussion. I don't know how everybody else feels, so the
Well, I
three.
agree with you. I think that's a good idea. I don't see navigation as being a luxury. I think it's a necessity. And if somebody doesn't need it or they don't use it, we don't pay for it. But
Yeah.
if they do feel they need it, then I think it's not a luxury, it's a necessity for them. So I totally agree that should be included.
So I think we
I'm
could
not
just take it out of this part where it says,
Yeah.
yeah, if just take where it says example and then it says navigation systems, we can just take that word out. Then it's not part of the policy.
Okay, now, conversation around unpaid accommodations. So you have a host. How is the rest of council feeling about that? Usually when I stay at somebody's house, there's no exchange of funds. I don't think we need that in there at all. So I'm good with taking that out as well.
So are you suggesting have no personal accommodation? The intention is to buy the host dinner or pardon me, something like that to just, it's just a way to appreciate the host having you stay. But so currently there is a $20,
Per day.
there is a
though.
$20 rate. So are you suggesting we remove it entirely and have no personal?
The way I feel it, like $40 per day is a lot if I'm staying at. I mean, I would opt out, but you don't even really know that it's there, so you submit your travel and then it appears, so like, I don't want to have it.
I suppose that if we left it in and somebody like yourself, Councillor Gerwing, or myself, would take that responsibility on themselves, and perhaps, for instance, if I was staying with family, there might not be any, and if I was staying with someone I thought would be reasonable to compensate them, then, I would do that out of my own pocket, but it would be in the option of the person who's traveling. Councillor Souls.
I think leaving it there is a good idea too, just simply because of the options. If I actually think back into all the years of being on council and the various travel that I have done, this is a very rare occurrence anyway for most of us from a travel perspective. So leaving it as an option, it's not an expensive option for the municipality, but it gives you an option.
Any other comments on that? Very well. And $15, Councillor Gerwing, was the other
Yeah, $15
incidentals.
per day for incidentals. Yeah.
And give me
I
an
would like to see
example of
that removed.
incident. Oh, sorry, Councillor Gerwing.
Sorry, I would just like to see it removed, but I'm.
Ms. McIver, can you give us some examples of incidentals?
Council's not required to provide receipts or anything. It was just back in 2003 or maybe even longer ago than that. It was something that council decided at that time to basically provide an additional per diem for council members. Maybe it's to cover things like buying a colleague coffee or something like that. I'm not really sure what additional expenses there might be for council, but
I would be good with taking that out. $15 is not much per day. Any other comments on that?
$15 of $2003 is not $15 anymore.
All right, I would make the motion that the travel expense policy be adopted with the following amendments: the navigation be included, the $15 be excluded, and the $40 for a host would be included in the travel expense policy. Do I have a seconder for my motion? Seconded by Councillor Souls. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Gerwing is opposed. The motion carries. Administration report number 74, cancellation of November 14th meeting and confirmation of inaugural meeting. Mrs. McIver.
So this one's relatively simple. Essentially, the community charter requires that a regular council meeting be held in the first 10 days of November following an election. So because we were so prompt at scheduling our council meetings for 2022 and 2021, we overlooked that fact. So we're asking that the council meeting date of November 14th be canceled and that your inaugural meeting be held on the 7th of November to meet the deadline prescribed by the charter.
Any comments on that? Very well. Someone make the motion. Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Penny. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Repeal of town and regional district councils remuneration. Ms. McIver.
So this is just the basically the final reading or adoption of the bylaw that council discussed at the August 8th meeting, and we just talked about it there in the repeal of those two former bylaws from the town and regional district.
Require motion then? Moved by Counselor Soul, seconded by Counselor Penny. All those in favor? Carried. Procedure amendment, a meeting date following an election. Ms. McIver.
So the charter requires that this procedure of having a meeting in the first 10 days of the November following an election be part of your procedure bylaw, also overlooked. So this is just to amend it and include that in there for, future staff and council.
May I have that motion, please? Moved by Counselor Soul, seconded by Counselor Andrews. All those in favor? Carried. Zoning amendment 5751 Alaska Highway, site-specific propane retail. Radia.
Good evening, Mayor and councillors. We received a zoning amendment application from the owner of the Triple G campground property, which is located at 5751 Alaska Highway. To provide the context, it's right beside the museum and Art Fraser Park. And the property is zoned as C4 campground commercial, where the campsites are situated. The zoning amendment intends to install a propane dispenser at the subject property. The applicant has indicated that there are limited options in the Fort Nelson where travelers and residents can purchase propane. And while propane is available at a few businesses in town, applicant has noted that the hours of operation at this location is limited. In contrast, the applicant has indicated that the campground offers extended hours of operation, and in doing so, will make the propane more available to the travelers and residents. However, the retail of propane is not a permitted use in the C4 zone. Consistent with the legal advice, a site-specific zoning amendment was advised. Also, during the review of the zoning amendment application, it was noticed that Northern Rockies Regional Municipality zoning bylaw specific to this property had not been updated following the consolidation of the property with the adjacent parcel in 2014. As a single consolidated parcel, the original lot where campsites are located is zoned as C4 campground commercial, and the consolidated lot previously a crown land is still zoned as C2 highway commercial within our current zoning bylaw. Therefore, the purpose of this zoning amendment is A, to update the zoning of the entire subject property to C4 commercial campground, and B, to add a site-specific permitted use of propane retail to the subject property. Typically, in considering any zoning amendment, legislation requires a public hearing notification, and the public notification notifying adjacent property owners to be initiated before the regional council adopts the zoning amendment. Additionally, a local government may not approve a zoning amendment that's applicable to the parcel of land located within 800 meters of the controlled access highway intersection, unless the Ministry of Transportation has approved the zoning amendment. And therefore, the zoning amendment application was submitted to the Ministry of Transportation for review on September 20th of 2022. If council considers giving first and second readings to the bylaw, the next step would be to conduct the public hearing on the scheduled date and bring a report back to the council for their further decision. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Adhikari? Very well. I'll make the motion then. Did we give first, second, and third reading and institute a public hearing? Second. Moved by myself, second by Counselor Souls. All those in favor? Carried.
Thank you.
Bylaw number 209, 2023, permissive tax exemption. Mr. Rochuk.
Mayor and council, the bylaw report in front of you is with regards to the 2023 permissive tax exemptions. And the recommendation is that the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality 2023 permissive tax exemption bylaw number 209, 2022 be given first, second, and third reading. So section 220 and 224 of the community charter authorizes the council to provide general, including schools, libraries, and places of worship, and permissive tax exemptions. A permissive tax exemption is a means for council to further their priorities of enhancing the quality of life in the municipality by assisting organizations that serve these objectives. A tax exemption bylaw may only be adopted after notice of the proposed bylaw has been posted in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks. And it's intended that the bylaw will be advertised in the October 12th and 19th editions of the Fort Nelson News, and thereafter included on the October 24th Regional Council agenda for adoption. I wanted to just make note, we had, generally it's the same organizations each year. This year we had 2 new organizations, and the reason for that is that they lease property from the municipality. And so as an occupier, they attracted property taxes. And so what we've done is had them apply for the permissive tax exemption, which will take care of future years, 2023 going forward, but it leaves them in the situation where there was 2022 taxes levied. So it's probably going to be a suggestion to them to consider a grant and aid application to cover those amounts.
Will that grant and aid application come at a later date?
Yes.
Very well. Any comments on this? Very well, I'll ask for motion. Moved by Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Souls. We approve the, pardon me? Option 1, yeah. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. Correspondence received. A letter from Fort Nelson Chamber of Commerce request to waive the cost of Phoenix Theatre for all candidates. Letter from Judith Sayer, Matt Austin, co-chairs Fort Nelson or First Nations Heritage Conservation. Invitation to participate in the Heritage Conservation Act Transformation Project. Letter from Fort Nelson First Nations regarding their 2022 election results. A letter from Maid Matheson, president of the Fort Nelson Motocross Club, land use license and expansion, and letter from Bev Anderstein, executive director of the Fort Nelson Chamber of Commerce Small Business Week. Correspondence that was sent. Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, a letter to Rob Cheyenne, president of the Rod and Gun Club. Letter to the Honorable Rob Fleming, Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, regarding the NDIT Connected Works co-funding proposal. Northern Rockies Regional Municipality letter sent to MLA Dan Davies, Fort Nelson First Nations, Prophet River First Nations, an invitation to attend UBCM. Northern Rockies Regional Municipality letter to Ben Stewart MLA and Michael Lee MLA, support for continuation of rail service in the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. Letter to Fort Nelson First Nations, congratulations on the recent election. Letter to Bob Zimmer, the interruption of mail service in Fort Nelson and the Northern Rockies. Letter to Fran Hogan, Community Economic Development Liaison, Peace Yard, support for first annual Argo Connect Conference and Agricultural Market. And letter to the Honorable Omar Algebra, Minister of Transportation, Government of Canada, requesting a meeting regarding the Sickney Bridge, mile 621 of the Alaska Highway. Letter to Heather Magna, Northern Rockies Tourism Advisory Committee, and a letter to the Honorable Josie Osborne, Minister of Land, Water and Resource Stewardship, draft Boreal Caribou Protection Recovery Plan. Also, council information package for August 10th, August 17th, August 24th, August 31st, September 7th, September 14th, and September 21st, 2022. Counselor Penny, My Catch app sponsorship for the 2023 Rotary Fishing Derby.
Yes, and I'm very sorry, but I didn't manage to get back on the shop today to get my notes so I could give you some real numbers, but I know that the numbers were in about 3,800 to 4,000 visitors to the page that was hosted by the My Catch app for the Derby. And we only had that up and going for not quite 3 months, I think, prior to last year's event. Whereas we want to continue that event next year, and we want to get that advertising and link up on the My Catch app as soon as possible. And so I wanted to bring it forward to that we pay for the app again for this next event. I feel it was very worthy and that we've gotten the exposure that I was hoping for throughout Western Canada through it. So any questions about it?
What's the cost of that, Counselor Penny?
It was $2,800.
Very well. Any other comments? I think this is a great idea. It brings tourism into the Northern Rockies, and I think it's quite beneficial to our community. So I totally support this. So,
Sorry.
oh, Counselor Gerwin?
Yeah,
Sorry.
thank you, Mayor. Would that come out of the tourism budget?
Yes, that would be my suggestion.
Thank you.
Very well. Last for motion then. Moved by Counselor Andrews, seconded by Counselor Penny. All those in favor? Carried.
You.
UBCM update, Mr. Barry.
Thank you, Mayor. So we just got back from UBCM the week of September 12th. Councillor Andrews, Councillor Souls, and you, the mayor, of course, are able to attend. What we thought we'd do here is just for the councillors that were unable to attend the conference and the various meetings with the ministers and ministry staff, just do a bit of an update. I'd welcome any comments from the attending councillors and yourself, Mayor, and myself and Deputy CEO Lavelle will do a bit of an update here, and I'll keep it relatively high level. I can go as fast or slow or as in depth as the other councillors would like, and interrupt, ask any questions. We have provided the meeting requests that went to each of the various ministries, and the key messaging that was also provided. In chronological order, the first meeting we had was with Northern Health, with Kathy Ulrich, CEO, Colleen Nice, the board chair, and Steve Raper, the chief of external relations and communications. Discussed during that meeting was the recruitment retention program that council has put forward and the new liaison position. Northern Health were quite complimentary regarding the program. During the meeting, also the lab tech shortage was discussed. It was indicated that there was a wage increase was expected as part of the bargaining process with the lab techs. We weren't quite sure if this was specific to lab techs or if it was across the board, but there was discussion around the rate of pay and being able to retain and recruit lab techs with the pay scale they had. Mental health and addictions, the need for more resources was communicated. The CEO said that a full-time harm reduction position was being added in the Fort Nelson area. And the capital program was also discussed and requested. Requests were made to meet with the board, and both the CEO, the board chair had offered to meet with council. And
Yeah, with that meeting, I got the impression that if we request the meeting, they guaranteed they'd come. So we'll kind of hold it to them, I guess.
Any other comments, Counselor Souls, on the Northern Health meeting? Okay.
Sorry,
sorry.
can we put that in the notes, like as a follow-up item to request a board meeting?
yes,
Thank
for
you.
sure. We have it, and it's a bit of a to-do list on our end to circle back with the various meetings for sure. But yes, we can confirm that, Councillor Gruen. We met with Citizen Services, Minister of Citizen Services, Minister Bear. The mayor and councilors thanked the minister for the their continued support. Emphasize the importance of connectivity in the north and the challenges that we continue to have regarding connectivity. The 911 call boxes were discussed and discussing how to expand the 911 service connectivity to the rural remote areas of the highway. And as was the case with most minister meetings, the mayor did bring up the rail line issue and how important it was for economic growth, and was asking for the support and for the province to do their part.
Anything to add, councillors? I was lucky enough to get an introduction by Minister Bear to her 5-year-old daughter, who did say, "Very nice to meet you, Mayor Foster." Starting young.
After that, Ministry of Forest, Minister Conroy, various staff, and Mr. Mike Takeaway, the assistant deputy, deputy minister. Assistant deputy minister, my mistake. Discussions occurred regarding thanking the minister for the forest tenure and the transfer to Peak. Mayor brought up the forest policy review specific to the stumpage review with the CFA, and asked the minister to consider, similar to the correspondence that went to the ministry in writing, to consider the impacts at the regional level of what the as part of that forest policy review. It was recognized, and the mayor indicated that recognizing it wasn't this Minister Conroy's mandate, but again, discussed help in any way possible regarding the rail line and need for it to be brought to an acceptable standard. The minister did acknowledge knowing about the issue, and said it was in the hands of her fellow minister, Mr. Callan, and the jobs ministry. And also indicated if there was approval at that level, it would also have to go to the Treasury Board. That's the funding that's been requested to try to match the federal funds for the railway. ADM Hikeaway did make the comment that the province has shown a commitment by providing tenure. It was also commented that businesses for like Peak to get the final investment decision takes considerable length, a longer time, it seems, in BC. That was a comment that Councillor Souls made regarding the length of time it takes to get a financial commitment or a business commitment to do a final investment decision in places like BC, compared to the recent announcement that Peak had for their pellet plant in Alabama, which according to them only took a few months. And then, of course, it was also discussed in the meeting around the CNBC rail sale back in the day. Seems to be a bit of a political concern when it comes to the current issues that we see with the railway. And a short line model would be a good way to get the line back operational. And a financial commitment from the province would be, we think, paid back in short order. Any other thing on that one there, councillors and mayor? After that, we had the jobs minister with Minister Callan, Deputy Minister Picus, and Raleigh Russell was also in attendance, parliamentary secretary. Went to just, the intent going to that meeting was to discuss again the rail line concerns around the fact that the line has been a hurdle for years, and looking for some support around the funding to get the line up to an acceptable level. And then during that meeting, it was indicated there was we feel was some inaccurate information that wasn't consistent with the information we had specific to the funding request and the current need for funding. And we've circled back since then and have some meetings scheduled with the deputy minister coming up here shortly to discuss that particular discussion and what some opportunities and options we may have moving forward. And the mayor, and since that meeting, also has attempted to connect with parliamentary secretary Russell, Raleigh Russell.
So in discussions after that meeting, I ran into Raleigh Russell and conveyed the fact that what we had heard in that meeting was not what we were hearing from Peak Renewables. Mr. Russell said that he was going to be getting a briefing from the Ministry of Jobs and Economic Development, and that he would get back to us and we would have a discussion. So I'm looking forward to that discussion because, as Mr. Barry says, there were several inconsistencies in that meeting, which I would categorize as at least troubling. So
It made that meeting, like we went in there with a good plan on how we were going to solicit information. And then we kind of got derailed when we got told that everything was sunshine and ready to go. So we kind of got stuck on our feet there too.
I think you're right, but we did mention to them even after they had said that they felt that this was already taken care of. We did stress the importance of rail to the Northern Rockies. So there was a message sent to the Minister of Jobs surrounding the rail and how important it was to the Northern Rockies.
Yeah, I think the tie was made with the taxation within our area was only made available through industry because of the existing rail that was there. And now we need help again to get that rail back to further that industrial, I guess, expansion. Yeah.
Next minister meeting was with Children and Family Development, so Minister Bond. Councillor Andrews took the lead in this discussion, opened the meeting, communicating the challenges and the struggles with the My Family portal, and was communicated that item actually falls in the Ministry of Education and Childcare. But they did commit, the staff and the minister, they were quite receptive, and they did commit to passing the information on and looking into it on our behalf with that ministry. Also discussed was the wait times for affordable development assessments were brought up, and the ministry staff indicated that that's the health authorities venue, and that's something that they would pass on also. Child and youth mental crisis. Councillor Andrews spoke of the child and youth mental health crisis and some of the current issues impacting the children and youth in the community. They're aware that it's an issue that's impacting many communities, and they discussed the clinician in Fort Nelson, which they're happy to have someone in Fort Nelson that was they actually had a staff member because of the challenges they have with staffing overall. He outlined that the clinician has seen 90 clients since July and has 9 on the wait list. And they also indicated that they had a child psychiatrist, visiting psychiatrist, but has since retired, and I believe that service, they didn't indicate that service was currently there because of that vacancy. And there was also discussion, Councilor Andrews discussed the Family D being designated as a family connection center to ensure that that service is in the community, to continue services in the community, sorry. They communicated that the test centers will be rolled out early this winter, and they hope to learn from that experience to better inform them for the broader provincial rollout. And they also mentioned that they want to see that when agencies put in proposals, is to demonstrate that they know their community that they represent. The minister spoke that she was very supportive of the local family centers, which know the community. So it was some good dialogue. I don't know if there's anything else, Councillor Andrews.
And I kind of stuck to the notes, and I was thrown off at the start when first notes were like, I guess, nope, not our ministry. But I know they were very receptive and sympathetic. I didn't seem a whole lot of solutions there. Just more of, yep, we're underfunded. Yep, we're understaffed. We're doing what we can.
Okay, Mayor. In between a couple minister meetings, so myself and DCAO Aaron Lavelle went to had a ministry meeting with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, ministry staff, which is typically what we do annually when we provide the draft annual infrastructure development plan document, which the final draft of that document has to be submitted to the province prior to October 31st. So that meeting did occur to talk about the RIDCA agreement and to provide that document. Following that, we had a meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs, so Minister Cullen, and which is again a requirement of our agreement. There was discussions around the IDC agreement and of course the gratitude of having the agreement in place. And as obviously it's from a financial perspective, it's great for us. And then after a part of that meeting, sorry, was also discussions with the minister regarding the concerns around the delinquent taxes and continuing to remind them that still is an issue with us when it comes for the oil and gas leases. Energy and Mines Minister, Minister Ralston. Mayor discussed the economic renewal and the importance of the project with Peak and Hydrogen Naturally. Some background was given the project and some of the partners involved in the project. Mayor discussed and brought up issues around the legislation around recognizing carbon credits as part of the biomass production process. Ministry staff acknowledged that there is a gap currently there and they're working on it and exploring options. Minister indicated that he was aware of the potential project, the hydrogen project, and also made the comment that the project seemed to be quite aggressive from a scheduling standpoint. Again, the mayor took the advantage of the opportunity to talk about the importance of the rail service to the minister. And also, Minister Ralston's previous ministry was with the Jobs Ministry, so he's quite familiar in the mandate of that ministry. Outlined the rail challenge, the application to the federal corridor fund, and the mayor also indicated that the project ticked off all the boxes and was hoping to that Minister Ralston could be a champion on the cabinet table to help this project go through. And some discussions also with regarding delinquent taxes as the Oil and Gas Commission is linked to this ministry, of course. Any comments? Good to go. Tourism Minister Mark, very engaging minister. Of course, the discussion around the importance of tourism in the region was discussed. Some of the issues that were brought forward weren't the mandate of the tourism minister. If we talk about park development and things like that, there campgrounds and whatnot. So the discussion is more on the importance of cross ministry involvement and the overlapping of the ministries and looking for that support within those ministries to help bring and increase the tourism opportunities locally. Councillor Andrews brought up gratitude and appreciation for the support from Destination BC and hoping for continued support for those from those types of programs. Minister talked about a program through Northern Lights College and indicated they're working on developing programs when it comes to staffing with programs at Northern Lights College to help develop and increase the workforce. And
So like tourism specific type jobs.
tourism specific, yes. Thank you.
And
Sorry.
if I may, did he indicate that would happen on the Fort Nelson campus, or was it going to be happening in Fort St. John and Dawson Creek and we could all travel?
She didn't actually specify that I remember. She asked actually if we had a campus.
Because it was a program they were doing
Yeah.
with Northern Lights, and she was hoping that ours would be one of them. But it's an option to, and she provided a lot of granting information and stuff like that, and to provide. So hopefully it's an avenue.
Yeah, she'd mentioned this is one of the top priorities that they're working on at the moment, and the strategic plan top three priorities are the three priorities in their planning are people, planet, and prosperity. And then she also mentioned about when working in reconciliation. She asked regarding work within our region of reconciliation, working with First Nations to help develop our area. She said that's very important, and the council and the mayor indicated our relationship with the neighboring First Nations and how there's some alignment there when it comes to showcasing our region.
Yeah, I mentioned our partnership when we did NCLGA with our First Nations, and basically everything we do in our community, we are inclusive and try to do it with them. And I actually ran into her again on the way into the banquet and invited her again, and she seemed really receptive to come up to the Northern Rockies, especially when I mentioned, look, if you give us some heads up, we can let our First Nations neighbors know and maybe have an event for you. She was very excited about that.
And then lastly, myself and Aaron also met with BC Emergency Health Services, the executive, to discuss some of the challenges from the staffing level they have locally that's hindering sometimes their service levels, and discuss some potential options and opportunities, provided them with the recruitment and retention, discuss that incentive, and had a reasonable discussion with them in terms of moving forward. And that's about it from the week, from the minister perspective and staff perspective at meetings for for UBCM. Is there anything else you want to add, Mayor or Council?
So we attended the truck loggers dinner and Truck Loggers Association with Minister Conroy. Minister Josie Osborne was there as well. And that was an opportunity to meet the minister again, and we did talk to her briefly there. I believe Councillor Souls went on a day trip with Minister Popham, Agriculture Minister. I caught the Premier's address. It was his final address before he leaves office. It was rather short on specifics and it was long on cooperation, but he did get a standing ovation, for his time and his efforts in government. Councillor Souls, do you want to share your time with Minister Popham?
Yeah, just my son Yukon's bananas have made a lot of an impact in the province of BC. And so that actually was a very fascinating segue. It opened up conversations with everyone I met, which was a lot of different people. What we had as far as the ag tour, there's one particular venue that we went to that was very applicable to a region like this one. And it was actually a community garden that was run in partnership with a school district on school property and linked together with school classes as far as gardening classes and so on. And they had a very competent and relatively young woman leading this program, and who was very good at connecting those dots. So they actually were running a commercial garden with vegetables for sale in the community, and they had only started it in March of this year. It was a racetrack prior to them putting in a greenhouse and a garden bed and a number of planters and various things. So of course, a lot of it wasn't up to fully up to speed, and yet she gave us some of their numbers, and the numbers look good. And they were actually looking at a $40,000 target of sales in the following year, next year. And so I just was really intrigued by the fact that there was a really good linkage between the school and the food security issues and the community and the ag community. It was very good linkage. One other thing that became obvious, or part of the discussion on the tour, and that was the attempts that the ministry have, not being farmers, they don't know how that side works, and farmers tend not to know how the ministry side works. And so the issue of providing local food to hospitals is something that I find out is actually being done in some of the communities in the Lower Mainland. And I just thought it very relevant for us to take a look. I will be asking some of the questions myself from an agricultural perspective if I'm back at this table again, regarding how that linkage can be made here in our community, since I know that that's been an area of need for adjustment for quite some time. Also met with the, just another area of linkage that showed up really clearly there is, given the geothermal project that's going on in the community and the involvement of some of the, one of the people that are part of the process is also as a consultant, and that is also one of the Agriculture Land Commission commissioners in the province. And the one, a second person that's also involved with the Agriculture Land Commission also is part of the greenhouse world in the establishing of the greenhouse, large scale greenhouse food connected systems in the Lower Mainland. And of course, they're talking with the geothermal world here about agricultural future. And so I'm being part of those discussions, just simply that was leveraged by the fact that my boy grew bananas. And so I think we will see some further discussions from an agricultural point of view as a result of these meeting and UBCM, the connections that were made. Some very, very good grounding work. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Souls. And I understand, Councillor Souls, that you're going into competition with the Minister of Forest regarding Paul Herfords.
Yes, like Hold Herefords, like, come on, give me a break. Hold Herefords. Anyway, it's good. She raises Hold Herefords, and the mayor of Abbotsford also raises animals. And I was always interested in what their markets are. Anyway, my cows grow faster than theirs.
There you go.
As a farmer, I find that very interesting to find how many people in the world of ministry and they have a connection to a farm in the background or a region that they grew up in that type of a world in the background. It's fascinating and it gives me hope.
So, you know, the minister meetings, although they're short on promises, there are an opportunity for us to build relationships like Councillor Souls builds with the Minister of Forest on something totally unrelated. And I think this is a really good opportunity to make sure that when the ministers hear the name Northern Rockies, they don't run in terror. They are rather eager to pick up the phone and talk to us. And I think that's specific, not just through the ministries, but just about everybody that we meet. If there's one thing that this job is all about, it is building those relationships. And I think UBCM was an excellent venue for us to do exactly that. We've touched on the ministers we've met, but as all of us there met many more people that tangentially touch the Northern Rockies. It is always good to meet them. I met Matt Mason from Fortis and too many other people to mention. It's always good to meet them, see them, talk to them, and build that relationship. Very well. If there's nothing else, we'll move on to rec stats for July, receive for information. And I have one addition. The Event Society is asking for a letter of support for grant applications. And I think we can give them a general letter of support. And I'll make that motion that we give the Event Society a letter of support for the grant applications. Seconded by Councillor Souls. Councillor Penny.
I just want to mention that it's needed for an application that needs to be submitted on Friday.
Yes.
Is this going to be just a blanket for all their grants so that anytime they go to submit a grant, they have our support?
Yes.
Cool. Yeah.
I do believe this, well, I think you'll have a copy of what was received from FNFN. I think this needs to be specific to the festival, this one, but I'm sure that a general support letter would be A-okay as well.
Very well.
Maybe.
Councillor Gerwing?
Maybe a general letter of support might be better coming from the next council. I have no problem in supporting this request, but like a blanket letter of support.
I think they're currently in the process of applying for several grants. Councillor Penny, maybe you can speak to that more than I, but when I spoke to Ms. Enax today, she had many grants that they were seeking support for.
Yes, that is correct. This one in particular is closing, that needs to be in by Friday. It's specifically for the event in March. But yes, she is, I have no idea how many grants that she's writing currently. It's a pile. So as much as I appreciate the comment, Councillor Gerwing, I'm sure we'll be coming back to seek approval from or support from the new council in a month or so, but just in case that there's other grant applications happening within the next couple of weeks, it would be great to have support from this council.
So there's a motion on the floor, seconded by Councillor Souls. I will call the question. All
So,
those in
sorry,
favor?
could I know
Go
what the
ahead,
motion is?
The motion is a request for a general letter of support for the Event Society for grants. I believe, Ms. McIver, we've written one in the past, have we not?
The one we wrote in past was very general in nature. It was just for the society. But then to Councillor Penny's point, the letter, the nature of the letter that she's seeking is specific to the 2023 Northern Lights Festival.
That's the one that's due by Friday.
Correct.
But the other grants that she's seeking right now also require letters of support.
I don't have information on the other grants she's seeking right now, honestly. What I laid eyes on today was just the copy of what we'd sent in 2020, which was very broad, and it was about the 2020 festival and what tourism does for our region. And then, but I presume this is for the 2023 festival specifically.
This one is very specific to the event, the festival in March.
Councillor Souls.
I just would suggest that we do a general along with including the 2023 festival application. If that takes an amendment to the, I don't know.
Very well. I'll call the question then. All those in favor
The
The
amendment.
general,
of the amendment
the amendment,
and all those in favor of the motion. It passes unanimously. Thank you. Standing items for discussion. Council reports. Any council reports? I think, yeah, we hear.
I have just
Council
a brief one. We had the opportunity to meet, thank you, Mayor, actually, for sending the meeting over to me to meet with Mrs. and Miss Vandersteen over at the chamber with members of Destination BC, and I'm gonna pull up their names because I'm horrible. Monica Leek and Christine Jones. And just to give you an idea what their positions are, Monica is a manager of market development, Asia, Pacific, and Mexico. And Christine Jones is manager, marketplaces and special events. It was awesome to have these ladies make the effort to come all the way up to the Northern Rockies. They traveled up and met with Urs, the Northern Rockies Lodge, came down here, had a meeting over at Chamber of Commerce. And following that, I made it available. They met with the Event Society over in the A-frame at the museum, and they were really excited about what's actually happening here and any way that they can help at all with development of operators in our area or anything like that. They're going to be on board. It was a really great to have them make that effort to come up here. I'm super excited about what'll be coming down the road.
Thank you. Any other reports?
Yeah, I have one.
Councillor Gerving.
So I attended the last Community Health Plan Steering Committee. Work continues on the ultrasound advocacy plan. And we are continuing to try to find a way to track the number of referrals. I think I mentioned before that currently we're tracking referrals for specialists only, and now we're interested in gathering some statistics on actually how many referrals, whether it's for an ultrasound or an MRI or a CT scan or whatever per month. September 11th, I attended the street festival and the show and shine. It was very well attended, and kudos to the NRM on attending to solicit feedback on the downtown revitalization and the Andy Bailey Art Fraser accessibility projects. Was on a Saturday, and we had, I don't know, 3-4 staff there and consultants, and I was just so pleased to see us there. We are going to where the people were. They had a huge attendance for those events. They married the show and shine and the street festival, and it was truly a wonderful day and a great time for the NRM to get feedback from lots of people. And then, September 22nd, I attended the chamber board meeting. Just to make note that the Business and Community Excellent Awards will be taking place October 19th, and Moonlight Madness is coming up November 18th.
Thank you. Are there any comments online? Very well. Any other comments? Very well. Hearing none, I'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all.
See you, Lorraine. Thanks for talking even when